So here's what I'm thinking. I believe in angels. I have to admit, this is a somewhat new thing for me, and even as I say this, the acknowledgement that I believe in mostly unseen spirits hanging out with us on a regular basis strikes me as somewhere between illogical and irrational. But, oh well, I do believe in angels. Let me tell you why. The whole thing started about a year ago when my dear wife lost her dad. He was a grand soul and a big life, and we all miss him dearly. But what was amazing is for the next 6 months, he kept showing up. I mean, not like in the Christmas Carol where he came as ghost form and gave us messages, but just kind of leaving clues that he was around. His favorite songs would appear on the radio when you got in the car and started it up. Noises would be heard in the attic. He was always up there looking for something in a box. And my favorite one of all, dimes, started appearing everywhere. Here's the deal on the dimes. When my wife and her siblings were very small, a favorite ritual between Dad and kids would be when they asked him for money, he would say sure, and then reach into his pocket and hand them a dime. This was his response to almost every request for money, be it for a piece of candy, prom, or going to college. It became a running joke in the family. But for months after he died, people in the family kept finding dimes on the ground, on their nightstand by the bed, on top the dashboard, in their pocket, and each time they would swear they don't remember putting it there. A few months after Dad died, I lost another person close to me, my first real mentor, my old college advisor who had been in my life for about 25 years. He was kind of my Tuesdays with Maury, and it was hard for me. After the funeral, I got contacted by an old friend I'd run into there with a strange request. Would I be willing to have some angels over to my house? Here's the story on that. My friend had been part of a group that had been literally inviting angels to come stay at their house for a week. And then at the end of the week, you send those angels on to another place, which is why she was contacting me to see if I would be next. Asking if I wanted angels to come, this is not a request that you get every day. So I thought, sure, why not? And 3 weeks later, they arrived. Well, what can I tell you? It was an interesting week. I felt a bit like Charlie. I would say good morning to the angels every day when I got up. I found and read some old letters from my advisor, and I felt some of the grief pass. It seemed as if our whole house was happier. The deal is when the angels come, you are supposed to write down 1 or 2 things that you want the angels to work on. I chose my mom's health and a family member who at that time was struggling a bit and seemed a bit stuck. I called my mother in the middle of the week while the angels were there, and she told me she was having a great week and that a lot of the pain had left. The family member who was struggling one night at dinner said out of the blue, she felt like maybe it was time for a new start. Coincidence? Maybe. But the really amazing thing that happened was at the next place that the angels went to. Oddly enough, the hardest part of the task was finding other people to take the angels after they were done with me. It was kind of weird even bringing the topic up. The first 3 people I asked said no. One wanted to know if this was a cry for help. One person challenged me, saying, "No thanks, I'm a Christian." "Well, so am I," responded. "What does that have to do with anything? Don't you think that having angels in your house is a bit out there?" she said. "Actually," I replied, "believing that a virgin woman was impregnated by an archangel and then gave birth to God in human form, now that is a bit out there." She didn't take the angels. But my friend Lynette said yes. Lynette specifically wanted the angels to come help with the young children of one of her friends who had died tragically earlier in the year. And it was a few days later when I was in the office and I received a text message from Lynette with a photo that was hard to make out, but it looked like some kind of big bird and had nothing else but these simple words: "Beautiful angels crying." When I caught up with Lynette later, here was the story she told me. She was at the neighborhood lake with her own kids and the 2 daughters of her recently deceased friend. The kids were playing in the shallow water, and Lynette was sitting in a chair keeping watch when she noticed an eagle flying overhead. Now, eagles in the state of Minnesota are not all that rare, but in the city? No, never. Lynette watched in amazement as the eagle circled and then flew down to a branch in a small tree right next to her. Lynette couldn't believe she was seeing an eagle only 20 feet away from her. That's when she snapped the picture, trying to document this eagle because she knew no one would believe that she saw it. But that's not what caused her text. It was the next moment when the eagle left the branch and flew in a low line just a few feet above the water, right at where the children were playing. And right before the eagle got to where the children were, it took off into the sky. But before it soared away, it dropped a feather, which slowly floated down to one of the orphan children. She picked up the feather, looked at the eagle in the sky, and then turned to Lynette and shouted, "That bird gave me a feather." "Yes, yes it did," Lynette said, already crying. That's when she sent me the message. So when I told another friend this story, he posed to me an interesting question. "Do you really think this kind of stuff is happening? Or do you think that when we start looking to find stuff like this, all of a sudden it appears like it's happening?" And I thought about that for a long time. And then I had my answer. Yes. Yes. I believe when we look for things in the world, we start seeing them show up. Not because we are making it up in our head, not because we are trying to manufacture reality. It's not because we start seeing things that aren't really there. It's because suddenly we start seeing things that are really there. Did you ever see one of those black velvet art things that look like a normal painting? Well, normal for black velvet, but if you stare at one spot for a few minutes, long and hard, suddenly you see dolphins swimming or rainbows over the ocean. I think that's how it works. It's there. It's there the whole time. You just have to look underneath and really hard, and suddenly, boom, there's a whole new world. And that world is good. Really good. I believe that there are wonderful, amazing, and divine things happening all around us, and we simply fail to notice them because we are too busy, or too distracted, or yes, too cynical and jaded to actually see them. And for me, becoming Oogway means to start setting aside the cynicism, to slow down, to stop being distracted, to start staring at the world with patience and intent until the beauty of it shows up, because I believe that it will. And then, perhaps, even if I don't start seeing angels, I will start seeing the work of angels, spurred on by all the prayers and well wishes and glad tidings of the people around me. Because indeed, I think that angels come to us in different forms. In just a few days that I have been thinking and reflecting on this blog, I have seen them. I was driving my car and I dropped my glove on the floor and I was fishing to get it, and all of a sudden I had an urge to look up. And I did, and I saw this car coming out of a driveway, a car that I would have hit if I didn't look up and brake. Coincidence? Maybe. In the same 2-day period, one of my students read the poem Desiderata in class, and then one of my friends emailed me the line from the poem, "No doubt the universe is unfolding exactly as it should." Was the universe trying to get me to trust in it a little bit? One of my main goals of Oogway? Maybe. I got a message from a student who wanted to get together for coffee, and I was really busy, so I asked her if we could do this after break, and she said, sure, no problem. But the next day I had this nagging feeling like I should see her. And so I called her back, and I told her, I really wanted to get together. She said, no, it's okay. And I said, no, I really wanted to get together. And so we did. And as we talked, she told me she was going through just a horrible, horrible time. And having someone just listen to her made all the difference in the world. Random? Maybe. But I choose no. Not coincidence. Not random. And I choose yes. Yes, to believe in angels. And maybe they are like Clarence, and they are trying to get their wings. And maybe they are like Nicolas Cage, and they are just there to welcome us home when we die. And maybe they are guardians, and they make us look up when a car is coming. And maybe they are playful, and they hide our car keys and then put them back in our pocket for us to find. And maybe they are inner thoughts and voices, and they gently remind us to place a call or look up an old friend, and maybe they are the best of friends, and they stay with us at our side and cry with us when we are sad and lonely, or when horrible, horrible things happen and our hearts are broken. And maybe they are our friends and our family that leave dimes on our nightstand just to let us know that we are not alone. And they love us just like they did before they left. These are the angels in our lives. And they are real. And they are good. And I believe in them. And I will look to see them in my world. Because I am not alone. I am in the company of angels. And maybe, truly, aren't we all?